So you're ready for your next journey, your next adventure, your next job. As we're looking at this, let's look at the things past the resume, past the letter, past the interview even. Let's talk about things that you can do that can separate you from other candidates. This is a leadership we need now, a space where we talk about kind, caring, and courageous leadership. I'm Stacey Dye, and I've been a nonprofit director, executive coach, and strategist for over 20 years. And this is a topic that I understand from the hiring process and being the one that's sitting behind the desk. And so here are some tips for you today. Today, I want to talk about your next journey, your next path, your next chapter of your career. And maybe you're someone who's looking for a job for the first time, your first real job. Maybe you've been in a slump and want to find something new, or maybe you love your job, but you feel like there could be a better fit somewhere else. All of those things kind of lead us to the same place, looking for a new job. I think that this is really important to talk about these types of things because in school or when you're doing a lot of the prep work for finding a job, people talk about resumes, they talk about cover letters, they talk about, interviewing skills, and all those things are so important. They're very valuable in the process. I think the thing that people don't talk about is this behind the scenes piece of the interviewing process. And so when I think back to the days when I managed a team and I did quite a few interviews and I would sit down and figure out what I was looking for in a candidate, I think that if I were a candidate, I didn't realize how specific that person really was and what they wanted. And what I mean by that is that when I think back to hiring an assistant, I think about the qualities that I wanted. I wanted someone who was detail oriented, who was gonna show up and be very good about time management. I wanted someone who could translate what I was saying and be able to do the work that I needed them to do. That there was very specific and logistical things that were part of that job and part of what I was looking for that candidate would need to fill. So when I'm interviewing, I'm always looking at that lens of when they talk, are they organized? Are they someone who pays attention to what someone else is needing? Are they trying to see ahead what I would need next? That's going to be a good fit for that position. Other times I interviewed for, when I would do interviews for other positions, those might be more of an independent position. That might be somebody that's innovative and creative and that wants to take something and go, have very little management support, self-motivated, who has the ability to regulate their time on their own. And again, two different people sometimes. And if you applied for one and not the other, it may not be the fit for you. It doesn't mean you weren't a good candidate. It doesn't mean you're not a good employee. It doesn't mean you wouldn't be a good fit for the organization. But for that opening, for that position, it wasn't the right time. It wasn't the right position. It wasn't the right match. And so I think sometimes as you're going into these things, you can take a lot of that personally. And I get it because I take things personally too. We all do. And that's natural and normal, but you need to be able to step back and go, this might just not be a right fit. They are looking for something specific. That's not me right now. I need to maybe find something that's a better match. And again, when we're talking about this stuff, there is a difference in your life when you need a job, have to have a job, and must, maybe even sacrifice some of your wants to have a paycheck. That is a whole different circumstance. Losing your job, getting fired, having the funding being cut, and having to find another job is a different set of circumstances. That's almost a different video. This is for people that are A, looking into the job market for the first time, or B, who are transitioning into a different position or a different job as they choose. So they're choosing to leave. It's not a forced thing, because sometimes you should leave for reasons that, it's an unhealthy work environment. You don't feel like you can do the work that you're doing, all those things. That's not really what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is liking what you do, but wanting to find something else, looking for your first job, those types of things. And so as you get ready for these interviews, as you start to think about what you want to do, making sure you're clear on what you're looking for, what type of employee you are, also looking at your skill sets and your weaknesses and being very honest about that. That's the two first questions usually ask. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? I can tell you on probably two hands how many people actually told me a weakness in an interview, and I've interviewed hundreds of people. It is not, for me, it is something that I pay attention to more when people actually tell me than when they say things like, I work too hard, I care too much, I overcommit myself to my passion, whatever the answer is to try to take a weakness and make it a strength. I think that it's really important to be honest about what things you're good at and what things you're not good at, because then you leave it up to the person interviewing you to decide if that matters, right? So if I walk into an interview and they ask me my weakness and I say, I feel that my weaknesses are that I have non-traditional ways of doing things. So I like to have freedom. I like to do things the way that I see them in my head. I probably wouldn't be a great fit if it was every day I had to do the same thing. Every day I was told how and what to do. I probably wouldn't be the best employee or the right fit. So if that's what you're looking for, we probably need to save ourselves some time and kind of move past that job, because it wouldn't make either of us happy and I wouldn't be able to do it well. So it's one of these things where understanding your weaknesses, if you're not good at spreadsheets and it's an accounting position, if you're not good at being detail oriented, I feel like I am detail oriented, but it's work. I know that it's work. It's, a lot of, kind of sitting myself down and being like, let's get through this. Let's just figure this stuff out. I'm a bigger idea person and creative, and I like to be innovative, and I like to have big ideas and do all those things. And so when you're honest, when you say what your strengths are and you also say what your weaknesses are, you give the opportunity to build mutual trust with you and the person that's interviewing you, that you're going to be honest about something, that if you don't know how to do something, you'll tell them and not just kind of fake through it, or that they won't hire you, go through the whole process of hiring you, and then you've kind of, I don't want to say lied, but you've exaggerated your skills and minimized your weaknesses. So I think it just sets everybody up for a good relationship. Even if they don't hire you, it gives you the opportunity to build a relationship, B, get the experience and the understanding of starting to talk about things in a different way, starting to talk about your weaknesses, not as, the grim reaper of getting a job, but really in a way of being clear with your communication and being transparent, because nobody's good at everything. And there are a lot of times where I've sat in interviews and people have said what they have a weakness about. And the weakness didn't matter to the position, period. It just didn't. It was, if it was something where they didn't feel like they were somebody who maybe had a shyer personality and didn't want to go in front of groups and speak, that doesn't matter to this position that I was hiring. Maybe if it was to do presentations in schools or to do presentations in groups or workshops, then it does matter. It actually really does matter. And so giving me the opportunity to decide that, and for you to be set up to know that this job will actually be a fit. I think the second piece to that is, after you get to understand yourself and know yourself and be able to talk about that, understanding the organization. That doesn't mean that you make assumptions about it. It means that you review the information that they are putting out about themselves. That is a pretty clear indication of how they talk about themselves, how they think about themselves. And, you don't have to take that any further other than to say, okay, as you're reading their website, as you're looking at their social media, as you're looking at news articles or things like that, being able to have a list, start a list of questions. If you see a program but you don't quite understand who it serves or what it does or why it does the things it does, writing that down and asking that during an interview is actually a big plus to me. It means that you took the time to review it, but also you took the time to say, I don't understand this. I want to ask clarification. I want to ask you questions so that you can explain it to me, and then I can see if that's still a fit. This is really important too, just from the person that's getting interviewed. I would say the tip with this is listen to wording. Listen to how they use the words they use. So in different fields, we use different acronyms or different terminology for the same things that in other fields they might use a different word. Making sure that you give back verbiage that person is giving is so important. Not because you're mimicking them, but because then you have a shared communication style. You have a shared understanding of what's happening. And if that's the way they're talking about it, that's the way they want to hear it back from you. And so that's just a little tip. I definitely, if somebody doesn't look at our website, if somebody didn't try to research me or research the organization prior to the interview, that is definitely a ding for me, simply because it's so simple now to do a Google search and to get some material, to read it. Again, asking the questions is super important in an interview. Not to just ask questions, but if you're really reading something, there's times, again, tons of experience, tons of working with an organization, and I'll say, I don't quite understand that. I don't quite understand why you're doing this. Is this a funding stream? Is this a grant? Is this a funder? Is this a high need in the community? Was there a disaster and this is a response to it? Trying to understand where they came from is so important because you can find out additional information. Is it specific that it's a grant and these are the requirements and you happen to be really good at some of the things that they're requiring to do? You're really good at community building. You're really good at communication. You're really good at fundraising or writing grants. It's really good to be able to add in. So if you have questions, you can then add in about how you could help the organization move something forward. I think that a big mistake that people have made in a lot of the interviews, and I can't even imagine if it was a more specific field, so if it was mental health or homelessness or another specific issue, is when they talk about passion. And not because we don't want them to be passionate about the work, but passion can't exceed work or work ethic. And so just because you feel strongly about an issue doesn't mean that you're able or capable of doing the work that's associated with helping to solve that issue. And so the more that you just talk about passion and don't talk about your contribution or your workload contribution, it will seem as though you're all talk and no action. And so you can say that you're passionate about the issue, but then you say, I'm passionate about the issue. This is the ways that I've done things in the past. I volunteered for this group. I did this 5K walk with around this issue. I have a family member that deals with that issue and that's really personal to me. So I take it very seriously, but I understand that there's a high amount of work and the work is important. The work is more important than my personal feelings or my passion for it. Because what it says on the other end is that you may make decisions based on emotion instead of making decisions for what's best for that program, the organization, that client, that customer. And that's kind of a red flag. Just as a thing for me, that was always a red flag, that when people talk too much about passion and not about work, I worried that there would be a line that they wouldn't be able to draw. I think that when you're looking at this and when you're looking at positions, it's really important to not get discouraged. It's important to come in all the things that people tell you to, how to dress, how to look, how to present yourself, thank yous, emails, letters, resumes, all that stuff is so important. Yes, it's the packaging. The stuff I'm talking about now, so that's the stuff that goes out. That's the stuff that's gonna, give you a little bit of a heads up in terms of what people are looking for. But the stuff that I'm talking about today and the stuff that I want you to remember is that there is, behind the curtain, there is a lot of stuff that happens. There's a lot of stuff that's personalized to an organization that has nothing to do with you. And so when you're walking into situations, when you're walking into interviews, it's so important for you to remember that this has to be a match. This is what you do every day. This is about getting really important work done. This is about doing things that matter, especially if you're in the nonprofit world. If you are not a fit, it is perfectly okay. If they don't believe you're a fit, even if you believe you're a fit, it's okay. It just means that the next opportunity is coming. And the more authentic, the more honest, the more transparent you are, not to overshare, but to give them, what you have. Tell them all the good things, but make sure you say, listen, in this position, my concern is this. I do learn fast. I am open to new ideas. I feel like I can adapt. I'm very nimble. All those things are really positive qualities. Those things are really things that matter, because you could get in there, and there's been times where I've interviewed somebody for something and thought, they're not a fit for this at all. I mean, it's not good, but I really like them, and maybe there's an opportunity somewhere else. So it doesn't have to be that this is the end for you. It means that this is a way to think about it a little different. So I appreciate you. Good luck on your journeys, and know that this is something that sometimes can be out of your hands. But if you can follow these things, follow these tips, and try to do and get better, the easier it will be. So good luck to all of you, and I'm sending you my love.